Dr. Ranganathan, am I the only one, or are you also feeling similarly spun around in the head by what I believe are not two things but both things simultaneously that Ashutosh says, which is sort of leading to a contradiction in his argument?
Tell me honestly, is it the weekend revelry or the spirit that makes you go weak at the knees and being kind at Ashutosh when you say that he contradicted himself only once? I'm sorry, but every single sentence of his was a contradiction. Let me point just one. In the context of street violence and these protests, Ashutosh says that this government has been dictatorial and draconian. Really? For not removing the illegal Shaheen Bagh protests for 6 months, for not removing the illegal Farm Bill protests from Singhu borders and other borders for 1.5 years, costing inconvenience to millions of commuters, death, destruction, mayhem, financial loss of tens of lakhs of crores. That is the sign of a dictator, or like Idi Amin, that is the sign of a demagogue. So, but let me ignore that, because Ashutosh, whatever he says, remains a very good friend. Now let me come to this topic, and let me humbly disagree with my other good friend, Mr. Amit Malviya as well. Ashutosh is right in one thing, that while Indira Gandhi was blaming the foreign hand, this government, through Mr. Amit Malviya, is blaming urban Naxal, bourbon Naxal, or whatever you may call it. But at the end, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Vultures always hover over the tower of silence. It is not the vulture's fault. It is what a vulture does. Fault is of those who have been silently watching India fall into a grip of anarchy since 2019. It is their fault. And chief among them are the Supreme Court of India and the Government of India. The harsh truth is that India has lost, anarchism has won. I dare say the entire nation has had it till here. With all this Kadi Ninda, Kathor Ninda, one can't help but hark back to that awful day last year, Republic Day, when the state allowed anarchists to run riot and hold the capital to ransom. Most cases were later on withdrawn. Free legal representation provided for the rest, even compensation. Even of this enough master stroke, 5D chess, hashtag outrage, ab tandav hoga. Arey bhai, take action. Fix accountability. Rahul, anarchy cannot be thwarted or pushed back by reason or logic. Only by applying the rule of law. And who applies the rule of law? Who sanctions it? Who protects it? Who reports it? And what are they doing? Let it be known that the exalted four pillars, the judiciary, the legislature, the executive and the media, support anarchy, not democracy. Today, all four have collapsed. The whole structure of democracy has as though been dynamited. Am I indulging in bombast or hyperbole? Only if you think that the abdication of the sacrosanct duties of these four pillars is nothing to be ashamed of. Only if you think that the inevitable vacuum that is created when justice and rule of law whooshes away is not filled at once by anarchy and bloodshed. Only if you never believe in the rule of law, so are not worried by its absence. Where do we go from here? Who do we turn to? Which pillar do we lean our whipped backs against? I do not know. We are always either waiting for God or Godot. Our expectations are like that river that empties into the ocean, lost and forgotten. Perhaps it is better that it runs dry. Rahul, these anarchists and fundamentalists don't believe in man-made laws. For them, right to protest is also right to prevent. They don't mind blocking roads if it suits them. Did Ashutosh even once in the last 2 years condemn the blocking of Singhu borders by these farm protesters? No. They don't mind marching amid COVID lockdowns and curfews if it suits them. They don't mind setting trains on fires like they're doing today, pelting stones, killing policemen. Though they don't mind it. They are a law unto themselves. And let me tell you bluntly, the anarchists are always watching the proceedings with a keen eye, always looking for a crack. And when they see the government, the Supreme Court, the police, the media as weak and scared, from Shaheen Bagh to 370 abrogation to farm laws to blasphemy protest to now this, they sense their opportunity and they swoop like vultures. I paraphrase in the end, Rahul, just 10 seconds. Mahakavi Dinkar, as though he's speaking of democracy. And I ask, दाई है कौन विपद का? हम दोषी किसको कहें तुम्हारे वध का? I'm sorry, the finger also points at you, me and all of us.
Dr. Ranganathan.
Good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my fellow panelists. I've been listening very patiently to the others, so can I please expect the courtesy of a couple of minutes uninterrupted. Rahul, speaking as a layman, because the good colonel is there to speak as a professional, as an expert, I support the Agnivir scheme for the following reasons. One, the chiefs of all three wings of our armed forces are supporting it enthusiastically. And across decades, across different governments, I cannot think of a single instance where our chiefs have knowingly taken a decision not in the interest of either the armed forces or the nation. It follows that if they are supporting a recruitment scheme, they would have banged their heads together on this one and ironed out all the possible impediments. Number two, and this was emphasized by the late General Rawat, the armed forces are not employment scheme. They are not Manrega. I'm sorry. In fact, they should be, and they are, one of the toughest forces and places to gain entry. Only the best should be chosen, and once they are, routinely tested so that they remain the best. It follows that if our military feels that there should be multiple rounds of merit-based competition, by all means, it should be encouraged to implement such a policy. I repeat, you are joining the defense forces, not a government employment scheme like Manrega. Number three, such recruitment schemes are followed by many nations. India is not an exception. You've already quoted China, Russia, France, and USA. Number four, the world over, you want the youngest, the fittest, the best to be trained for all future eventualities as begets their fate as well as the fate of the nation. The UPSC and the IITs have a multi-level selection process. So why shouldn't the armed forces? Number five, as far as the scheme now is concerned, you have a merit-based inclusion, after which you are trained for 4 years, at the end of which you accumulate more than 10 lakhs and you get an opportunity to further compete for a position in defense forces. For those who do not succeed at this second step, they come out of it with a degree, 10 lakhs, and a glowing certificate of having served the country when so young and inculcated the values of discipline and national service cherished by all Indians. And as many states are now clamoring to, they are saying they are going to induct them in other artillery forces as well. Like for example, CRPF and other Jawans and other police forces. I can't think of better ticks on the CV of a 21-year-old than this. Can you? Number six. As for those worried that the trained and the battle-ready rejected at the second round would be instead recruited by underworld and terror organizations, I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. It's ridiculous as saying, once rejected for the national team for Olympic boxing or shot put, the tens of thousands of pugilists and shot putters would be recruited by stone pelters and thugs. Number seven, let's not go blindly by the naysayers, because remember, their Modi hatred made them oppose even the toilets for the poor. And finally, Rahul, just 30 seconds, 8. A word of caution. Rahul, we have seen how this government repeatedly brings great schemes and policies, but then in reaction to opposition prodding and street violence, hastily retreats. Farm laws being just one glaring example. So who knows? This government might take back this scheme too, which would be a pity. Rahul, there are four issues here. Let me just deal with facts. Number one, the Supreme Court has not stopped the bulldozing, period. It has said there should be no illegal bulldozing. And the UP government asserts that there was no illegal bulldozing. Two, as far as this particular property is concerned of Mr. Javed Pump, ample notice seems to have been given. In fact, on May 10th, the date of hearing for this case, property being illegal, the date was reset for May 24th and a show cause notice was issued to Javed. He refused to accept the notice. It was then pasted on his building. As per the notice served, the owner himself was required to demolish the illegality and inform the PDA within 15 days or by June 9, 2022. This was not done. Now he is playing victim card. Incidentally, half the panelists out here were laughing and giggling and mocking when Kangana's office was illegally demolished by the BMC, as the High Court said, illegal demolition. Number three, Rahul, the issue is not Hindu-Muslim, as many Hindu properties have also been demolished. The bulldozing of Vikas Dubey's property is being just one example. Strange, isn't it? That all those outraging now were totally silent then. They didn't say Yogi was being communal and selective in demolishing Hindu properties. Yogi has thus far demolished thousands of illegal properties worth 1,752 crores in the last 4 years. Majority of them belong to Hindus. These demolitions are religion agnostic, but your eyes are not. That's the problem. Number 4, Rahul, I have said it multiple times on your shows, and especially after the Khargon stone throwing incident, that revenge bulldozing rioters' homes is, in my view, against natural justice. Tehsil knows it, I've said it. Because even if you want to punish the rioter by demolishing his home, you are punishing also his family, wife and children who are innocent. You can't transfer guilt or culpability in a crime to a relative. That's against natural justice. And even if the government says that the properties being demolished are on encroached land, that still is illegal and against natural justice, because demolishing a home, even if illegal, has to be done after adequate notice according to the High Court, as life and livelihood are at stake. And you violate the 2018 Vishwanath versus BMC SC judgment, just stipulating 15 days notice. But that's not the only judgment. There are multiple High Court and Supreme Court judgments that stipulate a mandatory notice period before which demolition cannot take place of legal or illegal properties. Tellis versus BMT 1985 Supreme Court, Inderjeet Singh 2008 Supreme Court, Bal Kishan 2010 Delhi High Court, Sudama Singh 2017 Supreme Court, Ajay Makan 2019 High Court. Even street vendors operating illegally need to be given a notice. 10 seconds, Rahul, but in this case, as I emphasized, Yogi gave ample notice, and that is what the Supreme Court should be concerned with, the legality of it.